you is if you have ambition to be great. My job is to coach you to get all that greatness out of you.
What is good, Finn Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason. We are back here for another one, and we got a pretty. Didn't think it was going to be this loaded, but here we are. It's loaded. We got some stuff about Flores and the Dolphins I want to talk about. That's come out today. The Dolphins signed a backup quarterback. I want to go over the top needs for the Dolphins heading into free agency. I also want to look at 5 players the Dolphins should cut, 5 players they should keep, and 5 players that they should let walk. Also, a very interesting article behind the Athletics paywall regarding Mike McDaniel. You know your boy got the access to that. So we're going to go over that with you guys. As well as, we're going to look into the whole franchise tag thing. It's a question that's come up today. And we're going to look into it. We're looking into the numbers, and we're going to look if it's even viable, if even Ogbah or Gesicki deemed being tagged. So there's a ton of stuff to go over today. Hope everyone is having a fantastic Tuesday. I know it felt like I got confused. It feels like Monday out here, because let's be honest, sometimes those long weekends they just fly by, and you get caught in a daze, and next thing you know, you're back at work or back doing whatever your responsibilities in life are, and that's where we found ourselves. So yeah, we're this Flores and Dolphins thing just gets uglier by the minute, and quite frankly, what his lawyers put out on Twitter today was stupid. Like, yes, it is a Tuesday, 2-2-2-2. If we'll go over what they put out there, and it's just kind of like, what are you doing here? So basically, the order we're going to go into, I want to get right into it. I want to go over the players I think we should cut, keep, and let walk. Then we're going to hop into the top positional needs, and then we're going to get into the stories of the day, because there are a few things to talk about that I really didn't think there would be much to talk about. One of those few, but enjoyable, somewhat drama-free days on social media. Nice to have one of those every now and then, isn't it? Good God. But now, thanks to Brian Flores, here we go. I hope you guys did your USFL mock drafts. Let me tell you this. Any league that starts with the number 1 overall pick being Shea Patterson, it's not good, ladies and gentlemen. It's not good. When Shea Patterson is the first pick of your draft, good luck to you and good luck to what you're trying to do. The XFL will out-succeed the USFL. You can mark my words down. You can quote me, do whatever you want. Jeremiah says, well, they say there's always a calm before the storm. Yep. We've only got a few weeks, and we're about to get into, draft/free agency season here. I'm actually going to be doing a new little thing with my top 10 free agency video this year, my top 10 free agent targets. Usually I do all 10 players. And then, this year I'm doing 11 through 15 as honorable mentions. But then from 1 to 10, I'm going to give you all 22 of each player. And I might even move that to my big boards. I don't know. We'll see. Bari says, Reason, did you see PFF say Allen Robinson to Miami? I've been banging that table for 2 years. 2 years I've been banging that table. Let's go, Allen Robinson. Reason, do you think the Dolphins can get a wide receiver in the first round? Yeah, I do think they can. He says maybe Olaf, Dotson, or I'm not as high on Dotson as everyone is. I'm not touching Jahan Dotson in the first. And really, I got a question for you. Other than the school they went to, what's the big difference between him and Wan'Dale Robinson? I don't get the Jahan Dotson hype fest. Because I'll say again, VPS, Treylon Burks at 29 all day. I just don't think he's going to be there. Drake London all day. I got Garrett Wilson is a better option than Jahan Dotson. And like I said this before, I'll say it again. I would take David Bell over Jahan Dotson. Don't get me wrong, I like Dotson. He's in my top 10. But what's with this overrating in Dolphins Twitter? I don't get it. I like him. But yeah, I agree with y'all that he's he's a great route runner. Brett Dodger says, I'll take, what did you say, Christian Watson? Is that what he said? Let me double check. Yeah, I said I'll take Christian Watson. Bro, I would have Christian Watson higher than Dotson on my big board if we had any kind of history of drafting from small schools. You know why I have no faith we're going to draft Christian Watson? And why I have him so low on my big board is because I have no faith they're going to draft him. If I had faith they would draft him, I would have him way higher. But I'm going to tell you right now, on my big board, he's going to be a lot lower than people think. And that's just because I got no faith they're going to draft him at all. They don't go after small school guys like that. Do I think Jameson Williams can fall to it? Yes. And Jameson Williams all day, every day, and twice on Sundays over Jahan Dotson. Pickens all day is sleeper. Pickens became a sleeper. If you go, even 2 years ago, George Pickens was projected to be the best receiver in this draft, right? And he's kind of fallen. Don't get me wrong, I like Dotson, but I'm taking David Bell over Dotson. I'm sorry. I'm taking David Bell over Dotson. But Dotson still is in my top 10. And he's just outside my top 5. The receiver class is very, very deep. I think last night I just finalized my linebacker big board too. So I've already got 3 of my big boards and my top 50 players of the draft finalized right now. I agree, Mr. JDM. The wide receiver room does need a makeover. Emmanuel says first and second round needs to be O-line. Forget receiver. Give me Abraham Lucas in the second. Let's go. JDM, the draft content's coming. My first big board drops next week. And I've come to the conclusion that I might drop a big board every week leading up until the draft, potentially. I might drop 6 big boards. Just because I want to drop a big board every week leading up to free agency. And then free agency is going to take over for a week, but then free agency may change. And one of the big boards I just did might not be as big of a need. You'll see why. When I get into my positional needs, you'll see why I'm preparing myself to do 6 big boards this year. And 6 big boards, I want people to realize, 6 big boards, I am going to give you information on that sense, if we're going 6 big boards here, on 90 players. That means y'all will see about 90. I'll probably be doing about 140-ish players in total this year. And you'll see 90 of them. Usually I do about 120. Hardcore research in. I do light research on other guys, but hardcore research in about 120. But that's obviously going to go up this year. And thank God I got out ahead of it. Yes, Greenlaw, the linebacker for the Niners, is a free agent. There's a couple of linebackers I like better, though. Carson Strong in the 4th to back up to Carson Strong will not be there in the 4th round, Scotty. I'm going to tell you that right now. I don't know if Carson gets out of the 2nd. Yeah, the Patrons will get my big boards first, Trubu, for sure. Honestly, back to the lineman thing. Zion Johnson makes a ton of sense. I'm really starting to think that Alec Lindstrom, that might be their move at center. I mean, if Linderbaum is there at 29, Linderbaum's got to be another guy. He's perfect for the outside zone scheme they're about to run. So, I mean, you got to take that into account too, right? Alec Lindstrom is going to be in play, and Tyler Linderbaum, if he's at 29, that's another name. There're going to be a couple names at 29 potentially that you could run. You could make a case for running up to the podium for. I agree, Rome. Linderbaum shouldn't get out of the top 15, but Cesar Ruiz almost fell to us a couple years ago at 26. He went at like 25 or 24. Yeah, Zion Nelson makes a ton of sense too, obviously, because of the whole tie-in, right, to Boston College. I agree. We'll have the draft talk. Someone asked about Daniel Fallell, so let me go up here for a sec. Minnesota University lineman and trade up for Alabama right tackle. So the Minnesota University lineman you're talking about is a right tackle. That's Daniel Fallell, Emmanuel Dean. And the Alabama right tackle is actually their left tackle this year, and that'd be Evan Neal. He can play left or right tackle. But I'm going to tell you right now, Daniel Fallell worried me in his Senior Bowl. Now, this year, because of our coaching thing, wasn't like last year. I didn't recap the Senior Bowl. I just watched it and such because I didn't have space for the content, really. The issue with Fallell is, he had defensive ends, edge rushers that were 100 pounds lighter than him, arcing around him, and then selling him on the arc. Oh, so he would open his chest, giving his chest, and them just putting him on his ass. So you saw football IQ issues. You obviously saw a lack of foot speed, and you also saw a lack of an anchor when he's not perfectly squared up. Some guys are still bulls, right? Even if they're not perfectly squared up to you, they're anchored so strong that you can't move them like that. This guy got put on his ass. And the thing I respect, I had a talk with someone in the scouting community about this a couple of days ago. The thing I respect about Daniel Fallell, because if you remember, guys, I've been watching Minnesota football pretty closely for the past couple of years because in the 2020 draft, I loved Tyler Johnson. And then last year's draft, I obviously loved Rashad Bateman, who I still think would have beasted last year if he didn't get hurt in camp. So I have pretty good exposure to Daniel Fallell coming into this year, right? So, I kind of, understood, and I gave him his props. I gave him his kudos. He did the right thing. He came back this year. He could have declared last year, but I thought he was way too raw. Honestly, just because he's like 6'7" and he's like 370 pounds. He gets so massive. But it's like, in the same sense, when you got all the offensive line gurus we have on staff, I wouldn't really mind taking him in the 2nd, but I'd prefer to get him in like the 3rd or 4th. Yeah, exactly, Juice. His footwork is terrible. And that's because he's not fleet of foot or anything as well. His footwork's poor and his feet quickness is poor. Bobby Wagner could be getting cut, Mr. C.W. Brown. The problem is his age. Tony Marine comes with the real question. No, Fallell is a right tackle. Yep. I would take Abraham Lucas over him. If you want my honest opinion, everyone knows me. I've been loving Abraham Lucas for a couple years now. Abraham Lucas, right tackle, Washington State. I would take him in the second round. Exactly, Rome. Falele has a look, but he's a risk. I wouldn't take him until day. I would prefer to take him like mid-day 3. Tony Marine comes with the real question, though. What do I think of Chad Muma, the linebacker out of Wyoming? Well, funny you ask. I really like the kid, man. You might be surprised if you want a little here. I'm going deep on him this year. I got Chad Muma, linebacker 3 this year. I'm telling you right now, I got Chad Muma as linebacker 3 this year. I love Chad Muma. He's a beast. Quay Walker is nice. I got Quay Walker pretty high too. But I got Muma as my linebacker 3. All right. Let's get into this stuff. Let's hop right into it. I think we're gonna start off. Everyone's trying to guess. I don't have Tyndale's linebacker 4. I have Tyndale actually. I'm actually lower on him than you, obviously. All right, let's go into this right now. I'll tell you right now, I got Tyndale out of the top 5. He's outside of the top 5. All right, he's not even in my top 5. But I like him. The linebacker class is actually like pretty stacked. Rome Gray, no comment. No comment, bro. Why you got to come out here doing that? This guy coming out here trying to steal thunder. Why you got to do me like that, Rome? All right. Let's keep going here. All right, let's get into this. Let's start it off. We got 333 in the room. Everyone talking about my love for It's Matariza, whatever you want to say. Say however you want. I'm gonna call him Matariza. Matariza, I want him. I'll take him in the 3rd all day, every day. And Scotty, he's not going in the 1st round. There is no way Matariza is going in the 1st round. But give me him in the 3rd all day. Don't even play with me. Don't even play with me. Don't even play with me, bro. You already know on YouTube, at least that's where that train started here. I need Matariza. Oh, Matariza, let's go. The Matariza train on YouTube begins here. I need him in the 3rd round all day. All day. I need the best special teams in the NFL. Let's go. Like Rizzy was back coaching our team. Let's go. Darren Rizzy. Let's go. Daddy Dean, if nothing good at 29, trade down and grab an extra 3rd for Matt the Bomb Ariza. Let's go. A lefty QB and a lefty punty would be hilarious. All right, let's get into this now. Now we're actually going to get into this. All right, let's start off with let's start off with the top 5 players I think the Miami Dolphins should cut. And number 1 is pretty freaking obvious, and that's Jesse Davis. Obviously he comes with a $3.6 million cap saving. But what is there to say? I mean, he allowed 57 pressures this year. All right. He allowed 10 hits, 8 sacks. He had 4 penalties. He played over 1,000 snaps. 922 of those came at right tackle. But he was piss poor in pass blocking, run blocking. He got a quarterback hurt. He almost got Jacoby Brissett hurt. Top 5 in pressures allowed. And I want the $3.6 million. I mean, what else is it? It's a crime that this man is still even on the team. If I would have walked in that building, the first thing I would have done is sent off Lemuel Jean-Pierre and Jesse Davis in the same freaking Uber. 2 birds, 1 stone. Goodbye. Get out of my building, you jabroni. So, Jesse Davis, man, I would cut you if I could get $3.60, let alone $3.6 million. Cut Jesse Davis. The guy is absolute waste of space. He is the worst right tackle in the league. Get off my team, you jabroni. Goodbye, Jesse Davis. You do not deserve to wear the aqua and the orange. Number 2, Clayton Fledglam. I mean, what are we paying this guy for? You're telling me I can save $2.775 million by cutting this guy? Is this even a question? The man had 1 tackle all year. In 2020, when we needed him, when we had injuries and McCain got down, he got lit up and he gave up touchdowns. He's literally nothing more than a special teams piece who contributes in no way, shape, or form defensively. 2.7. I mean, I got to take the same approach I just took with Jesse Davis. If I could get $2.77 back for Clayton Fledglam, I'd still cut him. I'd still cut his ass. So, get off my team, Clayton Fledglam. You have a terrible name. That's just a waste of my time learning to try and pronounce properly. You do nothing. You contribute nothing. In no way, shape, or form do you really contribute. I mean, do you really, swing the pendulum on special teams? No. You're the Bengals trash, and the old regime ended up paying for you for some reason. I have no idea why. I don't know if this was I'm guessing this was a Brian Flores push because Chris Greer probably never even heard of Clayton Fledglam until Brian Flores brought him up in a meeting. Good God almighty. Almost $3 million for a guy who had just special team snaps and 1 solo tackle as a defensive player. Stop right now. What a waste of money. Give me my money back. Again, I'd cut you for $2.77, let alone $2.775 million. Get out of my house. Number 3, a guy who this is a tough one because I love this player. Eric Rowe. Now, Eric, he looked like he regressed a little last season. Also, his snap count was clearly affected by Brandon Jones. He still managed, he was still targeted 4th most amongst all safeties. But he also did allow 48 receptions on those 61, which is the 2nd most out of all safeties. He had a decent year in coverage. But again, he had a passer rating allowed when he's targeted of 111.5. He didn't have an interception this year. Now in the run game, 24 run stops is a fantastic number from a safety, especially whose snaps are being played with. The problem is we're running into, because let's be honest here, when you look at this, right? He had 420 coverage snaps. He had 31 pass rush snaps, and he had about 187 in run defense. So 24 run stops, pretty good. 54 tackles in that amount of snaps is decent too. But it's kind of, you're now long in the tooth, right? He's about to hit 30. But when I say long in the tooth, all you people more than 30, I'm older than 30. Don't take offense. I'm talking about in football years. and the $4.5 million worth of savings. So, plus you're a Flores guy. You know, I like Rowe, but it's time to move on. You're not really needed anymore in this on this team. So, with the emergence of Brandon Jones, Eric Rowe has become more expendable, and $4.5 million is a lot of money to talk. It's a tough one, probably the toughest on this list, to be honest with you, out of the five. But it's got to happen. Eric Rowe, give me the $4.5 million in savings. I appreciate everything you've done for the franchise the last few years and your transition from corner to safety. You were an absolute stud and gem. But the youth movement, right? It's time to give more snaps and up the responsibility of Brandon Jones. Cut Allen Hurns. All right, you escaped last offseason. First of all, you escaped 2 years ago when you opted out with COVID. Now you escaped this season. I think you got hurt, right? I mean, do I even really need to explain why we need to cut Allen Hurns? Talk about someone who's given us nothing, and I get $2.5 million for getting rid of you? So, Allen Hurns, I'm sorry. I am sorry. I am sorry. I am sorry. But it was nice knowing you. It was a good time. No, it wasn't because I didn't get Jacksonville Allen Hurns. And it's time for you. There's the door. Look, at Scotty Joe even said I forgot he was on the team. And even though it pains me to say, you can take Albert Wilson with you, Allen. So goodbye, Allen Hurns. And I believe Albert Wilson's a free agent, so you don't have to cut him. Goodbye, Allen Hurns. You've moved your money multiple years in a row now due to circumstances. Well, circumstances have ran out, Allen Hurns. Goodbye. And then the final one here is a surprising one, and it's Adam Butler. And some of you might be surprised to see Adam Butler's name on this list because I actually praised him quite a bit last year. But here's the thing. He's a decent backup, but at that $4.1 million cap hit, they would get all, what's the point of keeping him? There's no dead money if he's released. And it's not like this is some crazy, talented player that we have to replace. To be honest, this is just another guy. This is a jag. So Adam Butler, $4.5 million, $4.1 million. The cap going into these 5 cuts I gave you was about $61.232 million for the Miami Dolphins. After these cuts that I've now given you, the Dolphins are sitting at $78.1 million. And let's be honest, we could name more than 5 players we want to cut, but I'm just giving you 5. So these 5 cuts would get us up to just around $80 million. Seems like a no-brainer to me. And there's a couple others you can Sethan Carter's like another $2.5 million. You can add Sethan Carter to that. So, all right, let's start with let walk. Let walk, and this is going to sting for some of y'all. Duke Johnson. Listen, I loved what Duke gave us. I really, really did. Here's the thing. Duke's not a scheme fit very much anymore. We don't need what Duke Johnson. We need outside zone, quick little scat backs now. Now, he had his career best game with us. I get all that. But right now, Duke Johnson, for what we're doing, talking about a guy with mid 4.5, to almost 4.6 speed here. So I like Duke Johnson, but due to where we're going, and he's going to be 29 this year. seeing as where this offense is headed, I just don't think, it's someone you bring back. I do think you let Duke Johnson walk. And it's a tough one because I actually really like Duke Johnson and I really respected and appreciated his contributions. So you let him walk. You don't re-sign him. You don't have to cut him. You just let him walk. All right. We do not need Duke Johnson right now. He is not a scheme fit right now into this outside zone offense. So there is someone they brought in that makes sense to bring back, and it's not Duke Johnson. And people thinking Duke Johnson fits either A, don't know the scheme, or B, are thinking with their heart. Duke doesn't fit what we're about to do. And I'm going to tell you right now, Duke does not stay around. So prepare yourself. Stop thinking with your hearts. Start thinking with this. Because Duke Johnson is not a fit to where this offense is headed. And a couple of people in the comments are already getting where I'm going with this. Let walk Michael Pilardi. Terrible. His 1-year contract is now officially up. And guys, remember, letting walk is not cutting. I'm not re-signing you. I'm letting you walk. He was 23rd in the NFL in punt gross average. He was just awful. I don't know what else to say. How many times did this man shank a punt? This man couldn't even hold a football properly for Jason Sanders. He was just god awful, and he cost the Dolphins field position so many times that I would punt Pilardi's ass to the sidewalk. You do not even discuss renegotiating a deal. You let him walk. Goodbye, Michael Pilardi. That was a terrible experiment. It was a waste of everyone's time. Michael Pilardi was just so bad. So bad. And it continues my Matariza agenda. Let's go. Punter from San Diego State University. 3rd round. Let's do it. So Michael Pilardi, get your name off my screen, let alone get off my team. Let walk, especially after the signing today, Jacoby Brissett. Or as I like to call him, and I coined the phrase, and it seems a lot of you took it over to Big O, Jabroni Brissett. Jabroni Brisket. Get him out of here. I don't know what to say. Like, god awful. And all the people that actually went out on a limb and said this guy was going to win a starting job, I feel bad to be you. I really do. Jabroni Brisket is one of the worst backup quarterbacks in the NFL. Get off my team. What a waste of money this guy was. And it was clear anyone who had faith in Jacoby Brissett doing anything special with this team had clearly never watched him in Indianapolis. Jacoby Brissett is terrible. And anyone who thought this guy was good needs to reevaluate their life and their football knowledge. He was absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible. So get out of here, Jacoby Brissett. You're not even a good backup. You couldn't even go 500. We needed like a Matt Moore type of backup. And instead, we got like the best Cleo Lemon impression. We got the best Cleo Lemon impression. He's so bad. Get out of here and get off of my team. God awful. Let walk. Preston Williams. You saw his usage go down super, 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 super heavy this year. Like we had never seen, really. And none of us even expected. Preston Williams was targeted 16 times. He only had 6 receptions this year for 71 yards. You know, he wasn't really creating a separation when he was out there. I mean, he wasn't even being targeted. Like, he was an afterthought in this offense. And I know there's rumors out here that he was punished because of him and his agent talking on social media and all that jazz. Whatever the case may be. Whatever the case may be. The guy can't stay healthy. I don't need DVP 2.0, especially now that his 3 years are up and he needs to be re-upped. So, sorry, Preston Williams. I got to let you walk. It sucks because you were a steal at the time when you were drafted. We all had high hopes for you. We all really thought you were going to go somewhere. I mean, we all really thought we had a potential 2,000-yard receiver combination between him and DVP. And boy, has that fallen flat on its face. So, you got to let Preston Williams walk. You got to let Preston Williams walk. And that's tough, man. I really thought he was going to be something. But you can't pay him. Unless this guy's going to take, like, the absolute minimum to come back. And then the biggest name here for me to let walk is Mike Gesicki. Now, the reason why I'm going to let Mike Gesicki walk. Now, Spot Track has it projected at about $11 million per year. I think this number is going to be up between 13 to 15 more realistically. For a big slot receiver, nope. Why would you pay that for a big slot receiver when that's not even what we really need in this offense? I like Mike Gesicki, but you can't block. You're not a good route runner, and you're going to cost around $15 million a year. Do you know how receivers need to block in this scheme we're about to enter? What do you think tight ends need to do? And this is tough for me to come to this decision because I really think the weapon aspect of Gesicki is very appealing. Would I be mad if they signed him for like 10 or 11 million for a 2 or 3 year contract and they tried to see if they could turn him into a blocker and a better route runner? No. But would I be mad if they paid him between 13 to 15 million a year? Yes. I like Gesicki. But his lack of willingness and capability to be a blocker. I mean, he was telling the coaches near the end of the season, line me up as receiver. He only was lined up in line 5% of the time. He had 16 pass blocking snaps all year. It's an issue. It's a serious issue. Now, I see people saying, can we tag him? Can we trade him? We'll talk about that. But the problem is with Gesicki, if running backs and wide receivers have to block, what do you think you have to do? And do you really expect Mike McDaniel to make exceptions? I don't. All right, let's get into the keeps. And, shout out to Mike Gesicki. I mean, I ain't going to hate on him. He had the 5th most targets of all tight ends this year. He had the 5th most receptions, the 8th most receiving yards, but he also had the 27th most touchdowns amongst tight ends. Right? So, and he averaged about 10.7 yards per reception. Seeing as after the catch, he didn't offer you much, only like 3.2 yards after the catch. So, all right, let's get into who we should keep. Let's start off. Where are you at, EM? Keep Matt Collins. Now, last year he played on a $1.275 million contract and only 337.5 thousand, right? $337,500 were guaranteed. And he's one of the best gunners in the game on special teams right now. You know, he gave you 4 receiving touchdowns on offense and 223 receiving yards. He gave you more touchdowns offensively than Mike Gesicki did. He literally gave you more touchdowns than Mike Gesicki did. And he's one of the best gunners in the game. You bring back Matt Collins on a similar type of contract. I'll give you $1.5 million and I'll guarantee $500,000 this year, and the rest can be incentive based. Matt Collins, you keep Matt Collins. Because you can do so many things with him in this scheme. You could line him up as tight end. He's a good blocker. I think you got to keep Nick Needham. You know, I was looking at Spot Track because it's really hard to find contract projections for Nick Needham. And their valuation of Nick Needham this year was, think about this. I want you to think about this. Think about this for a sec. Over the cap, all right? So Nick Needham got paid just over $800,000 this year. By their valuation scale, based upon his numbers, how he played, and what the valuation for corners at his level were paid this year, do you know they got Nick Needham at about, he played at about a $4.8 million per year level this year? Let that sit in for a sec. They paid Nick Needham $800,000 this year, but he gave them about $5 million a year type of production. You keep Nick Needham, and he's homegrown, and you keep developing. Phil McCall says you may say we need him. Of course, especially with X wanting more money and Byron getting close to 30, you keep Nick Needham in the building. I'm down for Nick Needham all day. And by the way, if you didn't get the hint, Will Fuller, that should be a given that he walks. I don't know why people are. Will Fuller is not on any of this list. That guy, he's not even allowed near the building if I'm running the team. So you give up, you go get Nick Needham. You keep him in Miami. I'm sorry. You look at the production he gave you this year. I got to defend Nick Needham. 29th amongst corners and tackles. 24th amongst corners and interceptions. He only had an 81.4 passer rating when he was targeted. 14 run stops in the run game too. So, you know, and this is a guy who, I mean, he gave you over 600 snaps this year too. So I bring back Nick Needham. I do. All right, next on the list, with Gesicki gone, I think you pay Durham Smythe. I'd give him $3 to $5 million a year. I believe he was just making over $2 million last year. I think you keep Durham Smythe. I think he's a perfect fit for what we're about to do. He can block. He's shown some playmaking ability. He can catch. Again, another homegrown talent. I don't want to let him another one walk. If we're already letting one walk in Gesicki, why not keep Durham Smythe? I think you really saw a step forward in his game last year. I mean, he was 36th in the NFL amongst tight ends and targets, but he was 26th amongst tight ends in receptions, 26th amongst tight ends in receiving yards. He's a great blocker. Did you know he had a higher passer rating when he was targeted than Mike Gesicki? He had a 94.1 passer rating when he was targeted. Mike Gesicki had an 88.1, I believe it is. And Mike Gesicki averaged about 10.7 yards per reception. Durham Smythe averaged about 10.5 yards per reception this year. And he only had one drop on 39 targets. And even better, Gesicki averaged about 3.2 yards after the catch this year. Durham Smythe averaged 4.9. So over a yard and a half more after the catch he was offering. I paid Durham Smythe. He was perfect in our RPO offense when we used him. You keep him, you keep developing Hunter Long, and you keep Shaheen on the roster, and you either keep Ethan Carter on the roster and use him as a tight end, fullback, and special teams player, or you replace Ethan Carter. But I keep Durham Smythe. I keep Durham Smythe. And he's one of he's a really damn good blocker. So, Emmanuel Ogbah. I would keep him. Now, Spot Track has him at about, they think his market value is about $10.1 million right now. So I put 10 to 11 million, though I do expect it to be more in the 13 to 15 range area, if you want me to be completely honest with you. But I'm going off with Spot Track. They, and over the cap. They do this stuff for a living, not me, in terms of projecting contract values. Now, I would pay Ogbah $13 million a year, that said. But $10 to $11 million a year, that's off their projection on over the cap and Spot Track. So don't start bringing your pitchforks out for me. You got to, I mean, what do you say? What do I really say to you right now? Okay, 11th amongst tight ends and sacks. All right. Number 1 among edges in batted balls. Right? Again, you look at him. I believe he's 16th in hurries. He had 37 hurries. He was top 10 in quarterback hits. I mean, I don't know what to say. Emmanuel Ogbah's had really 2 solid, stellar seasons as a Dolphin. I think you pay the man. I think they should have got out ahead of it last offseason. I think you should have taken care of X's contract and Emmanuel Ogbah's extension before you signed Jerome Baker. So if it's $10 to $11 million, Ogbah all day. If we start getting to like $14, $15 million, you got to pull back. So, and him and Phillips, I really do think you got to keep them together. I really do. All right. And then finally, keep the running back I think they should keep if they're going to keep one that we brought in is Phillip Lindsay. Phillip Lindsay last year, he made $3.25 million. $1 million of that was guaranteed. But here's the thing. This is the big difference between him and Duke Johnson is Phillip Lindsay's a scheme fit. Like, Phillip Lindsay made his bread and butter in outside zone schemes. It's a scheme fit. Lindsay is a scheme fit. Duke Johnson is not a zone scheme fit like Lindsay is. But you have to know football to know this. So, again, that's why I tell you, think with this, not with your heart. Because Philip, now at $3.25 million, $1 million guaranteed, I would give him like $500,000 guaranteed, and like that's his contract last year, by the way. I would give him like I'm willing to give him like $500,000, $500,000 guaranteed, and let's talk about like 1.75 million, 2 million this year. How is Lindsay a scheme fit and Duke Johnson isn't? Because Duke Johnson is more of a gap runner. He is not a outside zone runner. Philip Lindsay is an outside zone runner. Duke Johnson is more effective up the gaps. That's not Lindsay's game. So, right, Lindsay's more of a scat back. Duke Johnson's more of a bruiser back. So, Lindsay's a zone runner. Duke Johnson's more of a gap runner. There's difference. There is a difference. So, but this is just if they're going to keep one, you keep him. If you're going to keep one that you brought in last year, you keep him. So those are the 5 players I think they should cut. Those are the 5 players I think they should keep. And those are the 5 players that I do think they should let walk in regards to free agency this year. Now, let's talk about the top needs heading into free agency, especially with my free agency target video coming out in a couple days. And these are the needs that I've identified. Now, one might be filled, we'll see. So the Dolphins' top needs heading into free agency are we need tackles. I could take a new left and a new right tackle, really. Clearly. We need a center. And then we need some guard help, whether that's depth, whether that is whether that's a starter, because I don't think Austin Jackson's a very good guard. We obviously need wide receiver help. I mean, that's pretty evident. Let's be honest here. And we're going to need running back help. I do think Mosert's going to be on the table. I think Jeff Wilson's going to be on the table. I think there are going to be options. Linebacker. Guys are talking about A.J. Dillon. Guys, A.J. Dillon, you got to start thinking about scheme. This isn't Madden. Scheme matters, guys, to what you're doing and what you're trying to do. This is not Madden. Running back, we clearly need help. That's why I think Jeff Wilson, Raheem Mostert, those are going to be guys that they look at. I think they're going to explore stuff in the draft. Linebacker help. There's a few good available names on the free agency market. There's also some good names. Obviously, it's a pretty decent class in the draft. I do think they need a punter because Pilardi is not coming back. Let's be honest. Highly Bred knows what's up. Bro, go shout out to the homie Highly Bred. If you guys are on Twitch, if you want to watch a good Dolphins, Madden Twitch streamer, go check out the homie Highly Bred. All right, go check him out. That boy is the truth, man. That's my boy right there. Go check out Highly Bred. You see him in the comments right now. Go check him out on Twitch. That's my boy, man. Drop your Twitch links, Highly. Yeah, exactly, Rome. He said, bro, y'all need to know about the type of running backs that work. Dylan just hits holes. He doesn't fill here. Exactly, man. These punter. Okay, so Pilardi needs to go. I think we need a backup QB. Now we'll get into the new signing. Don't worry. And I have defensive end with a question mark. And that's because what happens with Ogbah? What happens with Ogbah? That's the $1 million. Well, it could be a $13, $14, $15 million question. But you got to ask yourself what happens with Ogbah. So those are the top needs, and that's why I'm really being cautious and I'm playing my cards right with how I do these big boards. Because if you see it right now, I've identified potentially 9 needs. Minimum. All right. So that's where I'm looking at right here. And those are my needs heading in to free agency. And we'll see how they fill out. All right. I know everyone's all hyped up that we signed a quarterback today. I and everyone's saying, "Oh, reason, you're Canadian. He's he's um he's from the CFL. What do you think of him?" Blah 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 blah. Uh, I mean, Chris Streveler's pretty good, but we're not out here getting Doug Flutie, guys. Let's relax. We're not out here getting, Warren Moon. All right. Chris Streveler's pretty good though. Good backup, has some experience. So this is what happened today, obviously. Former star CFL quarterback Chris Streveler has signed with the Miami Dolphins per sources. Streveler joins the 2020 fifth overall pick to Tagovailoa and Jacoby Brissett as quarterbacks currently on Miami's roster. Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel has become known for creating innovative offensive schemes to set himself apart, and it could be an ideal match. Did he find Jeff Garcia? The dual threat QB was a free agent after finishing the last NFL season on the Baltimore Ravens practice roster. Streveler worked out for the Dolphins 2 years ago prior to inking a contract with the Arizona Cardinals, so the player personnel staff in Davie, Florida was already familiar with him. The 6'2", 216-pound passer was released by the Cards in November after completing 17 of 25 pass attempts for 141 yards with 1 touchdown and 1 interception in parts of 2 seasons with Arizona in 2020 and 2021. He also rushed 7 times for 21 yards as a backup behind Kyler Murray. The 27-year-old completed 65% of his passes for 2,698 yards in 2 seasons with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, along with 19 touchdowns and 19 interceptions. He also rushed for 1,167 yards and 22 touchdowns, averaging 5.7 yards per carry, and was a key part of Winnipeg's Grey Cup run in 2019. Guys, I don't watch the CFL because it might stand for Canadian Football League to people that like it, but to me it stands for Crappy Football League. I hated playing 3-down football growing up in Canada all my life. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan. Every single NFL franchise had a representative in Streveler's pro day. He turned a 4.45 second 40 dash, a 38.5-inch vertical, and a 10-foot 5-inch broad jump at 6'2", 209 pounds. Each of the 3 testing results would have been top among all quarterbacks who attended the 2018 Combine. He worked out privately for the Bears, but went unselected in the 2018 draft and actually turned down NFL rookie minicamp offers to sign with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. The Bombers had known about Streveler for a while, putting his name on the team's negotiation list while he was in his final year at the University of South Dakota. Streveler was a captain and led the Coyotes at South Dakota to NCAA FCS playoffs for the first time in program history. As a senior, he completed 65.7% of his passes for 4,134 yards with 32 touchdowns and 8 interceptions while rushing for 720 yards and 11 touchdowns on 168 carries during 13 games. First effort, Streveler was named an FCS first-team All-American quarterback. So there you go. He actually earned a master's degree in sports management from the University of Minnesota prior to transferring from the Golden Gophers to South Dakota. And he was an FCS academic all-star team selection. So there you go. Working towards a master's in kinesiology. So it's a minor signing. It's nothing crazy. I mean, this didn't flip the NFL world on its head. I know everyone's excited about it. And hey, be excited. Highly bred. Does the signing Streveler say anything about our new scheme, being that he's a scrambler? What did I tell you guys? I stand by. Stop thinking about Deshaun Watson. Watson's not the one to worry about right now. If Tua don't work out, Lamar Jackson is the one to worry about right now. That's who you got to worry about. And highly bred, I do think they're going to have Tua on the move a lot. You saw how successful he was running bootlegs in this offense last year. And when you look at the outside zone scheme and how they build their passing game off of it, he's going to be bootlegging a lot. Play action, he's going to be rolling out. They're going to be moving pockets for him. So that's the Streveler signing is good. I mean, at least it tells us goodbye Jacoby Brissett. And Duke, I agree with you on the hard no on Lamar Jackson. But I'm going to tell you this right now. Mark my words. Baltimore is weary to give him his money right now, pay him $40+ million. Ross loved him in the draft, and he has a former MVP title under his belt, and he's been to the playoffs. Ross is going to go goo goo gaga over him if he becomes available. And I agree with you. I would hard pass that. But watch out. Trust me. Jason, why don't you guys like Lamar? I don't like Lamar as a passer. So, I'm preparing you guys. When you start hearing the rumblings, don't say I didn't warn you. I'm all down for a Jarvis Landry reunion, by the way. All day, baby. You don't even got to ask me twice. All right. Now, are the Dolphins going to use a franchise tag? The reason why I ask if the Dolphins are going to use the franchise tag is the NFL's window to use franchise tags opened today and closes on March 8th. History shows few players get tagged until the deadline. Notable players who warrant consideration: Devontae Adams, J.C. Jackson, Orlando Brown, Chandler Jones, Mike Gesicki, Emmanuel Ogbah. And you might be wondering, reason. How much is a franchise tag? Well, Ogbah's franchise tag this year would be $20.186 million. That's what Ogbah's franchise tag would be. Okay? That's what a defensive end franchise tag is right now. $20.186 million. A tight end franchise tag this year is $10.834 million. So just under $11 million if you were to tag him. But reason, you've been saying Gesicki wants to be paid like a receiver. What's that tag? Well, I got you. The receiver tag this year is $19.127 million. So that's the thing. Hey, JP on Sports, you're right. I do worry about Lamar breaking down too. His body is taking such a punishment. By the time that guy's 30, he's going to have the body of a 40-year-old. Like, let's stop lying to ourselves. So if Gesicki is tagged as a tight end, he would cost about $10.834 million this year. If he's tagged as a wide receiver, he would be $19.127 million. If they use it on Ogbah, he'd be $20.186 million. And the problem with, you just can't tag Gesicki as a tight end. The NFL is who decides what you tag players as. And the fact that he only had 16 pass blocking snaps and the fact he was only in line around 5% of the time, I'm going to tell you right now, the wide receiver one is what he's going to be pushing for. Because the arbitrator is who decides what he gets paid as. The NFL and the arbitrator are designated. So I'm not, you got to be careful here. Now, Cameron Wolf today was actually on NFL Network, and he was discussing the Miami Dolphins and franchise tag, and this is what he had to say.
Dolphins is tight end Mike Gesicki. He's the top tight end set to be a free agent, and he's a viable candidate for that franchise tag. As you mentioned, new coach Mike McDaniel has said he wants to get all the greatness out of quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. Well, Gesicki has been the most vocal supporter of Tua in that Dolphins locker room over the last couple of years, and that mutual love is translated on the field, where Gesicki just set career highs in catches and yards. Gesicki and rookie sensation Jalen Waddle were clearly Tua's top two targets. By the way, as our news director Jeff Birchfield noted earlier today, it's a good Tuesday to reference Tua on 2/22/22. But one element to watch on Gesicki is the Dolphins' new scheme is expected to have a lot of emphasis on blocking, particularly with the O-line and tight end position. Gesicki's great at a lot of things, maybe not as much blocking. So a philosophy question as much as a money question for Mike Gesicki. One other name to watch for Miami, as you mentioned, Emmanuel Ogbah coming off back-to-back 9-sack seasons. That defensive end franchise tag number is a little high at $20 million, but I'm told, Mike, they do want to find a way to keep him.
I've known they tried to enter negotiations with Ogbah during the season. I know that for a fact. I do think they're going to try and work something out. I just don't know if they're going to be able to work something out. So we'll see. Hopefully they do. I'm praying they do because I do want Emmanuel Ogbah to remain in Miami. I think he's perfect for our defensive scheme fit with the athleticism and the strength he brings. So hopefully they get it done with Emmanuel Ogbah. A couple more things to go over here. There was this great article in The Athletic regarding Mike McDaniel. It's behind a paywall, so I know a lot of people didn't have access to it. So I wanted to read it to y'all. And it's called Dolphins coach Mike McDaniel was the walk-on who never walked away. Mike McDaniel was a walk-on at Yale, which immediately tells you two things about the new Dolphins head coach. One, he's extremely bright. McDaniel got an academic scholarship at the Ivy League school, majored in history, and even while logging 40 hours a week with the football team, never took the path of least resistance in class. Far from it. He signed up for every course that caught his eye. Cold War history, African art history, consumer culture, and dragged his roommates along with him. Every college athlete is going to blow off classes, but he wanted to go, fellow receiver Chandler Henley said. He wanted to, who's now on the Dolphins coaching staff, he wanted to sit in those lectures and wanted to take full advantage of being at Yale. And it was great. He forced me to be a better student just because he wanted me to go and get the information. 2, as a freshman, he didn't have, and the sometimes goofy, always self-effacing McDaniel is the first to note this, an overwhelming football physique. He stood 5'9", wore dark, thick rimmed glasses, and looked more like a nerdy lab partner than a stud athlete. I would guess that Mike was probably about 150 pounds, and he didn't really run fast either, said Yale's head coach at the time, Jack Sedlecki. He was one of those guys that you thought, he's not going to be around here for really long. But that's what stood out about the skinny newcomer from Colorado. He never went away. Sedlecki said roughly 7 to 10 walk-on candidates showed up at his office each year inquiring about a spot on the team. The first thing he'd do was invite them to take in a practice or two. And that would be the end of it right there for most of them, he said. They would just see the size, and they had no idea. Ivy League football is good football. There are a lot of good, big football players running around out there, and they thought it was going to be an activity that they could put on their resume. Yale graduates, after all, have options, lucrative options. They become doctors, lawyers, engineers, and Wall Street traders. And after a while, even recruited players reassess their situations. Henley, for instance, said there was 35 recruited players on his freshman team. Only 17 remained when he was a senior. McDaniel didn't have size, and he didn't have a shot. He hardly played in 4 seasons and never accumulated any stats. But he studied film longer than anyone and attacked the weight room like he was training for the Olympics. His roommate, punter Ryan Allen, noted they spent a lot of time on their arms. It was, hey, we're standing around on the sidelines. Why not get the guns out, he recalled. McDaniel, 38, noted he even got an award for senior for being pound for pound the strongest player on the team, that he once cranked out 39 consecutive pull-ups. His reward for his feat of strength? I think it was a hat, he said. Look at that picture. What a stud. Football had bitten deeply into McDaniel and gotten into his bloodstream. He tested a more traditional path for a Yale student, a summer internship at an investment banking firm. But it didn't take. Nothing lit up his brain like football. It was all his sun and moon, even his muse. He wrote his senior thesis, the capstone of his 4 years at Yale, on the merger-era NFL of the 1960s and 70s. Allen, also a history major, remembers commandeering a reading room in Sterling Library and gathering so many books it was as if the roommates had built a fort. We spent a few weeks in there, Mountain Dews, Red Bulls, whatever, writing these papers, he said. I think both of us were like, if we're going to write 50 to 60 pages on something, it better be something we're into, because it was already painful. McDaniel's grade, an A-. You can omit the minus from that if you want, McDaniel said. 2 significant steps in McDaniel's career have been born of mistakes. The first happened when he was 10. He used to bike 20 minutes to Broncos training camp in Greeley, Colorado, and spend summer days gathering as many autographs as he could. He had gotten running back Roberto Del Pino's one morning, but wanted a second one, this time on a football card. Talking about autographs, they obviously left the word autograph out. There was one problem. McDaniel was wearing a splashy Charlotte Hornets hat and worried Del Pino would remember him from earlier. So McDaniel removed the hat, left it on a stone wall, and went off to seek the signature. When he returned, the hat was gone and McDaniel was in tears. We just didn't have that much money, McDaniel recalled, and it was a fitted hat, and the prospects of getting a new one weren't on the horizon. The Broncos video coordinator, Gary McCune, saw the boy in distress, helped him look, and eventually replaced the lost cap with a new one. Then McCune invited McDaniel and his mother, Donna, to watch practice. She and McCune hit it off, and a few years later, McCune became McDaniel's father. Again, if you watch that little video I played, you've seen that, right? The relationship fed into the boy's football hunger. He got a gig as a ball boy during the Broncos home games and worked for the team during the summer breaks at Yale. He and Henley, who was also from Colorado, trained at the Broncos facility when they were home, and Henley would run pass patterns against Clint Kubiak, the then teenage son of Denver offensive coordinator Gary Kubiak. At around the time he was working on his senior thesis, McDaniel was also composing letters to all 32 NFL teams asking for any sort of entry-level job they had open. Broncos head coach Mike Shanahan responded. He remembered the eager, energetic kid from the previous summers and gave him a role doing data entry and other odd jobs. He could do things that other coaches couldn't do or didn't want to do, Shanahan recalled, and he could do them so well, and he could do it very quickly, too. The second mistake isn't as warm and fuzzy. A year after his 2005 Broncos stint, McDaniel followed Gary Kubiak to the Houston Texans. It's where McDaniel first started working under Kyle Shanahan, whom Kubiak first hired as wide receivers coach, then promoted to quarterbacks coach, then to offensive coordinator. McDaniel was Shanahan's right-hand man. Every time Shanahan took a step up, McDaniel rose in prominence as well. Kubiak was someone who invariably was at his desk at 6 a.m. McDaniel was not a morning person. He later would deal with alcohol-related issues in Cleveland and Atlanta. I mean, who wouldn't in Cleveland? And his Falcons colleagues eventually confronted him about the problem. It led to McDaniel seeking help, and he says he hasn't consumed alcohol since January 4, 2016. Back in Houston in 2008, there were at least 2 occasions when Kubiak called to ask his young assistant a question, and there was no answer. The phone rang and rang, and eventually McDaniel was dismissed. It meant that when Kyle Shanahan joined his father in Washington 2 years later, McDaniel didn't go with him. Instead, he spent 2 seasons with the Sacramento Mountain Lions of the United Football League. When McDaniel finally rejoined the Shanahans in Washington in 2011, he discovered he no longer was the only hotshot assistant in the room. McDaniel distinctly remembers sitting in an early offseason meeting to go over pass plays from the previous season. And I was used to being the young up-and-comer, he said, and I look at Kyle at the head of the table, and flanking him were Matt LaFleur and Sean McVay. And they were just rattling stuff off every play. You couldn't get a word in edgewise, and they were on it. They were very detailed. It was a little overwhelming. I don't know. I was a position I wasn't used to being in. McDaniel realized he had to do something to distinguish himself, so he asked to work with the offensive line coach, Chris Forrester, so he could learn Shanahan's system in a way none of the sharp-minded assistants did from the offensive line's perspective. And Kyle Shanahan was obviously strongly in favor of the move. Now he's hearing all the O-line stuff and seeing how they coach the run game, Shanahan said. It's the O-line world. When you've never played or coached the O-line, it's a different world. The running game, specifically being able to build creative game plans, has become McDaniel's calling card. In 2012, Washington's young assistants crafted an offense for quarterback Robert Griffin III that led the NFL in rushing. 2016, the Falcons finished 6th in rushing. The 49ers finished 2nd in that category in 2019 and 7th in 2021, a season in which Elijah Mitchell set a franchise rushing record for a rookie. Receiver Deebo Samuel scored 8 touchdowns on the ground. It's no coincidence that one of McDaniel's first player-related moves with the Dolphins was signing an Ivy League fullback, John Lovett. After all, he had his own version in San Francisco, Harvard-educated Kyle Juszczyk, who made the Pro Bowl in 6 consecutive seasons. And there you go. You see Usyk and him hugging. It also makes sense. The top candidate to succeed McDaniel as architect of the 49ers running game isn't 20 something rising star, but Foster, their 60-year-old offensive line coach. He's the only one with the knowledge and experience with Shanahan to fill the void. McDaniel's ouster from Houston was a setback, but Shanahan also thinks it forces top lieutenant to take a road less traveled, one that's ultimately benefited him. Usually, you become a pass game guy or an O-line guy, Shanahan said, and you don't find a lot of people who know both. And he got forced into that because when he had the 2 years away from me, there were so many others who came in and who were all really qualified. So that allowed him to go a route I normally wouldn't have put him on. I mean, like it so far. McDaniel also noted that he's never missed a pre-dawn phone call or been late to a meeting since his 2008 episode in Houston. I know one thing he said, once I got to Washington, I was known as the early guy. All of the above makes McDaniel unique among NFL head coaches, and there's more. Former Browns receiver Andrew Hawkins recalled a conversation with McDaniel, Cleveland's wide receiver coach in 2014, again when he was battling alcohol issues, in which Hawkins prefaced a sentence with, "In the black community, we think this." And I said it a couple times, and he was like, "Yeah, I know, I'm mixed. My dad is black," Hawkins said. The receiver initially thought his position coach was joking, in part because, well, McDaniel is always joking. It's what he uses to engage players during endless meetings and to put those around him at ease. When he was promoted to 49ers offensive coordinator in 2021, it meant McDaniel began having weekly news conferences. Reporters soon referred to them as Mike McDaniel Comedy Hour. I'm just excited to be here, McDaniel, upon arriving at the I'm just excited to be here at the lectern for his first session in July. Equally excited for you to truly take in how physically imposing I am. I mean, I tell you, man, tell me this guy isn't like classic. This guy is hilarious. It's awesome. Henley, the Yale receiver, said McDaniel always keeps teammates on their toes. He once introduced Henley as my foreign exchange student's brother to see if Henley had the mental agility to play along. When Allen was on the field, was an on-field guest at McDaniel's before a game in Los Angeles in January, Mike McDaniel introduced him to receivers coach Wes Welker by saying, "Of course you know Ryan Allen, the famous Yale punter." Allen said there was an awkward pause in which Welker searched his face, wondering if he had met Allen before, if he indeed was a famous punter. He isn't. Allen went into finance shortly after graduating from Yale. When you give him a chance to have an audience, he has some fun with that, Henley said. He is so intelligent that sometimes his jokes don't hit with everybody. But he doesn't care. He's like, well, I gave it a shot. McDaniel's conversation with Hawkins, however, was no joke. His biological father is black, and McDaniel identifies as biracial, which Hawkins said absolutely was a surprise because at first glance, McDaniel doesn't appear to be biracial. And he's like, I'll send you a picture. Who says that? Hawkins recalled, and I said, okay, it better look like just like you because I think you're full of it. And lo and behold, he sent me a couple of pictures, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing, and he does look just like you. Hawkins described McDaniels as the best and most unorthodox coach he's had. Before the 2014 season, he was teaching Hawkins and other receivers to get cleanly off the line of scrimmage. Here we go. Releases, separation. Let's go, baby. He didn't show them film of shifty wideouts. Instead, he put on clips of point guard Allen Iverson, whose unique cross move over routinely left defenders flailing as he flew by. It was think basketball at the line of scrimmage. Don't think football, Hawkins said. We would talk basketball, and he made it very simple for us, and he essentially drilled us and taught us two versions of a release. And here's when you use them, and if you do it, they will work every single time. Hawkins insists the technique works so well that none of the Browns wideouts who went through the offseason with McDaniel was jammed a single time that year. Hawkins finished with a career-high 63 catches and 824 receiving yards under him. Yale teammates said they started seeing those coaching traits when McDaniel was a junior. That's crazy. Look at the relation. See that's a good teacher. See what I keep talking about: preaching, teaching. You find a way to teach these players under you in a sense of things they relate to, i.e., if they show an extreme interest in basketball, you show them something that can play off that extreme interest that they can relate to. And then when it works, you look even more brilliant. At the same time, they were showing off their biceps on the sideline. Allen said McDaniel would call out the offensive plays and predict their success as they were happening. He was like, "This is not going to work. Look at that defense," Allen said. And he was always right. And I was standing here like, he's got an uncanny ability to just understand the game for someone who's only 20 years old. And calling out what the coaches were doing incorrectly, and these guys are in their 40s, right? I started to think he's got this football mind that I don't have, that I don't think anyone else has. While McDaniel eventually worked his way up to be a backup, Henley was a star receiver from the moment he arrived at Yale. He was the captain of the 2006 Ivy League championship team and finished with 110 catches and 1,609 yards. Still, Henley gobbled up every suggestion and pointer that came out of McDaniel's mouth. We'd come back to Colorado for the summers, and he basically took that opportunity to coach me, Henley said. He was working through learning the game in his own mind and using me as his guinea pig. And instead of being upset or disgruntled about the particular role as a player, he realized he could still help by helping others get better. That's a perfect way to picture his first experience in coaching. He wasn't reciting what a coach had told him, it was all his own brain. Hawkins described a similar experience, noting he was 28 and he had been a professional receiver for 6 seasons when he arrived in Cleveland. I wasn't a young pup, he said, but he learned more that season than any other stop. McDaniel knew how to deal with people. And most importantly, the unconventional coach made his players better. If you can do that for an entire team, Hawkins said, yeah, I can promise no one will care that you're 170 pounds soaking wet. I've had a lot of coaches who have looked the part, sounded the part, say all the coach speak, and they've all sucked. I'm excited for him to put his own spin on what head coaching looks like in the NFL. I'm telling you, man, I keep telling you guys, the praise that we're seeing for him is not the same praise that we're seeing for other people. This isn't just media people. This isn't just media people right here. So, okay, hold on a sec here. So yeah, it's a little good deep history, and it shows you his ways of teaching. They're unconventional, but they work, and players respond, and that's all you need. So love it. Good stuff. And then finally, guys, here, this was something that actually came out today, played out, and we'll get into it here. So if you guys didn't know, Brian Flores, he is going to be on HBO tonight with Brian Gumbel, and they're going to be talking about everything. And the one thing that came up today was the NDA discussion. And so this is a transcript from some of the interview. And here's what. So Brian Gumbel said, I was surprised to learn that when you were let go by the Dolphins, that you're asked to sign an NDA, a non-disparagement agreement, and you declined. Flores responded, said, yeah, I think, just signing that, separation agreement would have really silenced me. I believe it's on in about 18 minutes, and I'll be done by then, so you'll be able to catch it. How much money did you wind up leaving on the table by choosing not to sign the agreement? Gumbel asked. Flores said a lot. Gumbel said a good amount. Flores said a lot of money. What's a good amount? And then one of his lawyers chimed in and said it was millions of dollars. Then another one of his lawyers chimed in and said it was 2 years. It was a contract to coach, and he basically said he left 2 years worth of money on the table. And then he said, but in terms of NDAs, I mean, this is how they run their playbook. And Brian Gumbel said they being the owners. He said the owners. So if a coach is terminated with a couple of years or a year left on the contract, they don't get paid. To John's point, unless they sign a waiver, an NDA, confidentially and not non-disparagement. So they buy their silence. So Brian Gumbel said it was Stephen Ross who asked you to sign the NDA. Ultimately, the owner of the Dolphins, you chose not to. Brian Flores said, He affirmed that it was. So, he was then asked, do you have any evidence to support this claim? They said yes. And Gumbel said, okay, right? And basically, We have evidence, I can't share with you. And Brian said, I get that, but that's not my question. My question is, are you willing to share that evidence with the league in its investigation of Stephen Ross, separate and apart from your lawsuit? And they said they would share it with them. So then Stephen Ross responded when this news was already coming out. And this is what Stephen Ross had to say. Stephen Ross said the latest assertion by Brian Flores that Steve Ross mentioned an NDA to him is categorically false. This just did not happen, and we simply cannot understand why Brian continues this pattern of making unfounded statements that he knows are untrue, and we are fully cooperating with the NFL investigation and look forward to all the facts coming out, which we are confident will prove that his claims are false and defamatory. See, there's that word again. A defamation lawsuit. They are going to come with I'm telling you right now, they're going to try and hit him with a defamation lawsuit. So then after that, then this evidence that they said that they had, the lawyers, they dropped it on everyone. And the evidence that they dropped actually wasn't an NDA. Right? It wasn't. So here's what they dropped and they said that they had. So this is Wigder Law. He was in response to the Dolphins calling Brian Flores' assertion of an NDA categorically false. Below are screenshots from the draft agreement and payment termination notice. If Brian Flores had signed this, he would have been gagged and unable to talk about his experience. So basically, it talks about here this non-disparagement agreement, but it's actually not an NDA. That's the problem where we're at with this right now. It is hold on a sec. Yeah. So the problem with that is, you said it was Stephen Ross. This is not showing that it's Stephen Ross. And here's the second picture right here. Right? Employee also agrees to participate. And MDL, by the way, is Miami Dolphins Limited, in case you guys didn't know. If you're looking at who's MDL. This is a standard separation agreement. This does not counter the Dolphins' denial that Stephen Ross offered it to him. So this is not evidence of an NDA. This is a standard separation agreement. Like, people sign this, like, if you're in the medical field and you're going to another job and they don't want you to take their trade secrets because you're working on stuff to the other medical, they'll make you sign something similar to this. This is literally just a standard separation agreement. So, again, not really all that they had made it out to be. So when you watch, if you're going to watch Brian Gumbel and Brian Flores in about 15 minutes, this right here will tell you that, hey, it's not truly what they're saying, right? So, guys, here's the deal. I'm going to be back Thursday and Friday. I'm aiming for Thursday to drop my top 10 free agent target video. It might be Friday, but either way, I'm going to have 2 shows this week left, Thursday and Friday. One of those are going to be the free agent target list. I hope y'all come out for it. We're going to have all 22 of the players as we go over them. I'll have little mini scouting reports for each player, so we'll be dropping that. I'm aiming for Thursday. It could be Friday. We'll see. And then the other day I'll be filling up with a normal show. So, guys, I appreciate each and every one of you spending some of your Tuesday with me. I hope everyone is staying happy, healthy, safe, and blessed. I know we're coming off a long weekend, but it's a short week, so the weekend will be here before you know it, I promise. Guys, as always, you already know what time it is. You already know what time it is, baby. It's Fins Up all day, every day. Again, thank you to each and every one of you for spending some of your Tuesday night with me. I will see all y'all right back here on Thursday. If news breaks tomorrow, you can count on me going live about it. But until then, until I see you next, everyone, stay happy, healthy, safe, and blessed. I love each and every one of you. Have a fantastic evening, everyone.